Woo. Well, welcome back, y'all. Happy Women's History Month. It is March. And I'm so excited to be back for this month's collective conversation that's centered around women and girls winning and collective giving. If this is your first time joining us for a collective conversation, welcome. We're so happy that you're in the space today. I am your moderator for today's conversation. Um, sorry, y'all. I am the moderator for today's conversation. I am Taisha Ty Wilson. I serve as the Senior Director of Community at Philanthropy Together. And if y'all don't know anything about Philanthropy Together, you definitely should check out our website at philanthropytogether.org. We are a global initiative to scale and strengthen collective giving globally, y'all. And so, but we're not talking globally today. We're going all the way to the South, home for me. I'm in Texas, as y'all know. I'm in Dallas. I'm a South girl. And so, joining me for this month's conversation are three dynamic leaders doing amazing work out of the state of Alabama. It's Elizabeth Hubbard. She representing the Women's Foundation of Alabama. Hey, Elizabeth.
Hey,
I'll
everybody.
get to you and your whole good story in just a second, as well as Jessica Norwood, who is the one of the co-founders for Society of Clotilda. They are based a Giving Circle based in Mobile, Alabama, as well as Chandra Brown, who also is the leader of Society of Clotilda. Am I saying that right? Y'all know I'm country. Did I say it right?
You did. Yeah.
I did say it right.
Yeah.
Okay, Clotilda. Okay, good. All right, ladies. Well, we're gonna have a good conversation. But before we jump into, I feel like I always have to lead with data. In this work with philanthropy, we have to lead with data so that the people really understand the why behind we're doing this work, why we're choosing to invest in women and girls, because the need is great. Did y'all know that over $499 billion was allocated out in charitable gifts last year, but less than 2% went to support women and girl causes? That's the whole hot mess. But we have people standing in the gap, like the Women's Foundation of Alabama, who have made significant investment, moving millions of dollars to support women's empowerment in Alabama, and that's why we invited them and the Society of Clotilda, which is a giving circle that's housed at the Community Foundation, to talk about how they're able to move money where to help us bridge these gaps and inequities and where we're seeing in philanthropic funding. So I'm a hush for right now, but I really need y'all to think about that. As we're talking about women and girls, we think that we are being fully funded, but we're not. And so we need more funders. We need more advocacy. We need more energy. This is an urgent call for y'all to join us in supporting organizations that are led by women and that are women and girls serving. So that's my seed. That's my beginning TED talk for this conversation. So let's get into it. I'm always interested about stories, so I lead with data, and then I go right into the stories. I'm gonna start with you, Elizabeth, with the Women's Foundation of Alabama. I'm curious to know, like, how in your role. Please share a little bit more about your role, your work at the organization, and just how you got involved in collective giving.
So, hello, everyone. I'm Elizabeth. I joined the Women's Foundation back in 2021, which was a pretty big year for us. Our CEO, Melanie Bridgeforth, was taking the Women's Foundation through a strategic plan that she had put in place a couple of years beforehand. And that strategic plan included the Women's Foundation going statewide. So we were originally the Women's Fund of Greater Birmingham, and now we're the Women's Foundation of Alabama. So we went statewide in 2021, which is when Chandra and Jessica, the conversations really first started. I would say, I feel like it was like maybe end of 2021 was the conversations first started with them, and Melanie started those conversations because I was not on board yet. Melanie wanted to take our organization from the work we were doing in Birmingham to across the state of Alabama. We were already involved in policy and research work that does affect the whole state, but our giving was not affecting the whole state. And so that is how we came to our Giving Circles initiative. And that's how the Giving Circles, we actually have 3 housed at the Women's Foundation across the state, one in Mobile, one in Birmingham, and one in Morgan County, which is the Huntsville area, if you're not familiar with Alabama. And so that's how collective giving came to be at the Women's Foundation. And we just wanted to build a women philanthropists, build them up in a community that they've never really had before, and also bring them together so it's not only them but other ones too, so they can affect their communities directly with their own resources, so they know where their resources are going back to their community and giving back to the initiatives that they care about deeply. The Women's Foundation obviously cares about all their initiatives deeply, but it's more impactful when it's on their communities directly.
Thank you for that. And in your role, a lot of community foundations, they don't, I mean, we're seeing more community foundations host giving circles, start giving circles, but also even seed funding for positions like you that are focused to help the giving circles from as like a staff liaison. So your role, what specifically is your role, Elizabeth, by way of like your how you work with the Society of Clotilde, exactly, with Chandra and Jessica?
And so within my role, so actually Chandra and Jessica met me when I was actually the Associate Director of Development when I first got with the Women's Foundation. And I have recently, the foundation is so wonderful. I have moved across the U.S. to Colorado for my family. And I am now switched over to a program officer position, which I don't know if y'all know program officers. They also do grant making as well. And so because of my relationships already held with them, I was able to carry on my relationships with the Giving Circles from the Associate Director position into a program officer position, because I'm still doing grant making with the Giving Circles, and I support them in all administrative efforts of running their grant cycle through our Foundant system for grant making, as well as, if anyone gives, when they give their donations or dues of any sort, make sure they're getting those tax acknowledgments through our 501c3 at the Women's Foundation, and then supporting them on any other things that they need. They've been wonderful and to work with, and they are great hands-on. It is a joint effort to do all the work that they do, and they're directly hands-on with their organizations and community members that they have been working with. So really, I am just lifting them up, and they're doing all the hard work.
Emphasis on that. A lot of giving circles, we are the ones, boots. I'm a member, a leader, a chair of a giving circle based in Dallas. And so you're absolutely right, Elizabeth. We are doing the work. And so just appreciate the Women's Foundation of Alabama investing in supporting Society on Clotilde, because we want more giving foundations to do just that. Okay, so Chandra, Jessica, I want to know, all of us want to know how y'all are organizing. Tell us a little bit about the Giving Circle and the story behind the name and your own personal connections on why y'all decided to go about supporting solely women and girl organizations and such. Tell us the story.
Well, I'm super excited to be here. Elizabeth has been amazing. The Women's Foundation of Alabama, everybody on the team at the foundation has been really incredible. And Melanie has been a great champion for women and issues way before even doing the Women's Foundation. So Chandra and I had the privilege of knowing their founder, Melanie Bridgeforth. And when we found out that she was expanding across the state, we called and we thought, this is our chance. Chandra and I have been looking to do a giving circle in our community for a long time, but the education in our community really wasn't there. People didn't see Black women in particular as philanthropists. And so we didn't have a lot of energy behind it, but we knew that we would have a champion with the Women's Foundation of Alabama. So we were excited that they were going statewide, and we made our pitch. We were like, listen, we need help. We want to do this. And we're grateful that they said yes. And so we kind of, that was one of those moments where we said a thing and then we had to back up and actually do a thing.
Right.
And so it's been a really incredible year. It's our first year with our Giving Circle. And the back end office is really what, Women's Foundation brings, but also just a lot of, brings a solid amount of credibility to our work, processes and systems behind what we're doing. And so we're all really maturing in our philanthropy because we have such a really solid partnership happening here. And Chandra, I'll leave it to you to talk more about the name and, why we wanted to focus in on the women and girls in our community.
I think Jessica and I have been like on and off talking about how can we best engage like Black women in issues of our community. And so I think it was probably 2019. Jessica had called because we'd had unfortunately, a rash of domestic violence homicides amongst Black women in our community. And so she was like, what are we doing about it? And so some of the work that we do in my day job is for sexual assault. And so we really started talking about like, well, what can we do and how can we raise awareness, and how can we not just raise awareness like in a general capacity, the way that like domestic violence programs or rape crisis programs do. How can we specifically raise awareness amongst Black women about issues that Black women face? And this could be the jumping off point, because it's something that we all know that is horrible. Unfortunately, with the stats, you like data. So with the stats that we know that 1 in 3 women have experienced some type of domestic violence incident. And so like, what can we do to say that we no longer want this incident? We don't want this to be our community, right? We don't want this to be our life. So we got together. The Clotilda is the last slave ship that came to the United States, and it landed in Mobile. And it's created a small community, a small maroon-based community of enslaved folks, formerly enslaved folks in Africatown. And so that's our community. Wow. And when we really started talking about the Society of Clotilda, we wanted to create a space while uplifting the history of our community. And we wanted to create a space for everyone and all the Black folks in our community to rally around in some capacity, right? Because we know that like, nope, maybe we didn't come over on the Clotilda, but we came over on a Clotilda. And then in also doing like our research around Society of Clotilda, we were like, who's uplifting the names of the women that were also on that boat? So what can we do to just raise awareness of Black women in our community? Because we know that we as Black women, we're the conduit, we're the linchpin, we're the family. And so if we can take care of her, then she can take care of the community and it can be uplifted. And so like that was our foundation for us in moving forward to create this. We had several prongs to it that I'll probably forget right now, but it's all on our website, that Jessica and I went into, and it was all Jessica's idea. So Jessica's the creative. I'm the person that gets to be like, all right, then, okay, cool. Right. We can do it. We're going to do it. So she'll come with this like beautiful 20-page paper with charts and graphs and pictures, and it's really fancy. And I'm like, okay, let's figure out how to make it happen. So we got together and we held a beautiful brunch. We gave out capes and crowns, and that's kind of the center of our work, because we want every woman that enters the space to feel like this is the joy and presence of you. And so that's where the crowns come in. The capes come in is because, you know, Jessica's a big Diana Ross fan, so she said we had to have capes.
This is so good, Chandra, that you are. I really appreciate you pulling out the cultural, the story, the personality behind your giving circle, because we say this all the time. To know one giving circle is to know one giving circle. Every circle is very different. And it's especially those who are considering like starting a giving circle, and they're thinking like, oh, well, what is it going to look like? How do I determine a name? How do I decide on a name? How do I approach a foundation? Like, right? Y'all just touched on so many of those conversations behind the scenes that's taking place. Even a point where you said this is something y'all have been thinking about, but then thinking about like what Elizabeth said, the timing sound like y'all had already seeded the idea in your hearts and your mind what you wanted to do behind a giving circle, and then the timing with the ones in Alabama, and that kind of got us rocking and rolling forward. So I love that, and want to talk a little bit more about that, because Jessica, you mentioned about just the education, how a lot of communities don't see Black women as philanthropists. Sometimes we don't even see ourselves as that. I know my granny wasn't walking, I'm a philanthropist. She was not, but she was cooking the meals and showing up for our community and my sisters and raising all of us and all of the things, right? But she never adopted that narrative or that claim. And so as I'm listening to you all talk, I'm curious, well, what are some of those other challenges or misconceptions that y'all are trying to unpack within your giving circle, and as well as with you, Elizabeth, from a foundation stance? You have some foundations that are not sure if they should invest in this kind of model of participatory grant making. So what are those? Let's talk a little bit about those challenges and exceptions that we need to debunk and with those harmful narratives.
Yeah, Ty, you really hit it on the head there. There's one where the community at large may not necessarily see us as philanthropists, and then there is the place where we may not necessarily see ourselves as philanthropists. And so there has been a lot of education around just the things that we naturally have been doing in our own communities to care for one another and to invest in one another and take care of things that need taking care of. And as we've been able to talk about that, I think it opens up a sense of agency and a sense of, pride and power. And that really, I think, is a through line and makes what Women's Foundation of Alabama is doing so incredibly important. Because if we're talking about policy issues over here, then an empowered person and a person who is really seeing themselves as an investor in their community, as a giver in their community, as a part of that community, the through line is going to carry on into how they advocate, what policy issues and so forth, and then really ultimately the level of quality of leadership that we have in our community. So we see not only the members of the Giving Circle, we have 25 members, founding members of the Giving Circle. Very excited about that. Yeah. Both of our moms are in the Giving Circle, which is really, really special to be able to share that intergenerational play. And there are a couple of other mother-daughter groups in our Giving Circle as well. So that part is really, really special. And then the people for whom we are giving the gifts to, these nonprofit organizations, women leaders in our community, we're able to say, we see you and we support what you're doing and we want you to continue going forward. And so we're lifting up their leadership as well. I think we made 10 grants this past cycle. And so that's 35 women who are now activated and moving and thinking about each other and thinking about how they work together to really lift up our community. And that has been a game changer for our community, because we hadn't prior to this had those kind of threads where we were able to really unify under this kind of banner. And it makes, really important policy conversations like the DE&I that's happening in Alabama. It makes it easier to have those kinds of conversations amongst each other, because we've created this web of giving and supporting each other. So now when when we're facing really some very bleak times with some of these things, we're able to look to each other for resources and for support. And so it's much more than just the amount of money in the giving. It's a change in the leadership fabric in ourselves and in our own communities.
And that piece right there is, I want all of us, all Giving Circles, to start figuring out a way to measure that indirect, direct. Because, right, we talk about the money, we can track that, but it's all of the beyond the dollar support and the work that really comes to life, the extension, the ties, our connections that we make with the grantee partners. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But Elizabeth, even with you all, like with the foundation, y'all decided, okay, let's adopt collective giving circles. This is a deal. Let's go. So what were some of those things that y'all had to work through, challenges and misconceptions that y'all as a foundation had to break through to really get the Giving Circles up and running and excited, and get your staff and such excited about this form of collective, of doing philanthropy that's rooted in community?
Absolutely. And that is the root right there, is like, it is rooted in community. They are the ones who are giving back to their communities, and they're the ones fundraising for their communities. So we had to look at, as yes, we are a foundation and we are granting out larger dollars, but their dollars are going back to what they see in their community needs that meets that direct need that their community needs then. So Jessica mentioned that they granted out to 10 organizations and 35 women this past year for within the Mobile County, that the Women's Foundation or these women probably don't even know about the Women's Foundation. And Jessica and Chandra are sharing that with them. And we had to create the narrative of like, we're building a larger like grantee organizations like pool. And so they now know about the Women's Foundation. They can apply for Women's Foundations and get even larger grants from us, and building that community among our grantee partners and allowing them to know, like, you're not alone. We're all in this together, and that we have other resources to offer. Because like you said, just redefining what it means to be a philanthropist. It is not just about donations and funds and grants. It's also about volunteering your time or offering your skills and your services pro bono to these organizations who maybe just need to be lifted up, or just need to sit down and have a conversation with them to be like, oh, can y'all think about this piece of our work and how we can improve this piece of our work to make it better? Just having those open conversations with them, but allowing them to, come together with other women who also want to have those conversations and feel the same thing like that they do, is that they want to give back to their communities, and they can give back in separate ways. I mean, you mentioned your grandmother was cooking the food and giving the meals. Like, that is philanthropy. And people forget, like, giving back to others in any capacity is philanthropy. And we had to break the barrier of philanthropists is not just money. It is bigger than that. It is more than that. And just being in your community and listening to your community's needs is philanthropy, and giving back to them in the way that they need to be given back to you. So
spot on.
And
I know for a lot of foundations and philanthropy, they care about money. I mean, that's why I lead with data, y'all, because sometimes I'm like, I can tell you the stories behind the Giving Circle, but then we start bringing up the data and the amount of money that's being moved, and people pay attention. So I want us to talk a little bit, because what you all are doing with the Society of Clotilda that granted out to 10 organizations, right? As well as with the Women's Foundation, you all recently, and I had to research this, but make sure I'm right, Elizabeth. Y'all gave out $1.2 million to 46 Alabama-based programs across 44 counties that impacted the lives of 6,400 women and girls. That's the data we need to tell the story. People don't want to tell, that's the story. Right. And so I want to just unpack that a little bit on both of y'all ends on your grant cycles, about talk a little bit about the grants that was issued out and the impact, some of your grantee stories behind all of that money and such that y'all moved. So tell us a little bit more about that holistic approach that y'all pushed to intentionally move that amount of money out to organizations. And the same thing for you all, Chandra and Jessica. Would love to know a little bit more about your grant cycle with the 10 grantee partners, and then how they were able to, access y'all funding and all of that.
Absolutely. So the Women's Foundation, as she shared, we granted out $1.2 million this last year to 46 Alabama-based programs. This includes our Giving Circles, because they are part of our larger grant making. So this includes their organizations and their funds in those numbers. I just want to share that. And then across 44 counties. So this is our first year. Well, 2023 was our first year that we ever had a competitive grant cycle that was statewide. So we went statewide.
It was a competitive grant cycle.
It was our.
Tell a little more about that.
So that is just our that is our grant cycle that we run through the foundation, where we have 3 pillars of our work. And so my Vice President of Philanthropy and Learning, Zandra Jones, she came into the organization and we rethought our pillars of work and our priority areas within the Women's Foundation. So we have women in work, women in leadership, and women in well-being. And these were our focus priority areas for this year for a competitive grant cycle. This $1.2 million, it includes our Giving Circles, our competitive grant cycle, our 2-gen collaboratives with our community college partnerships, and is everything that we did this past year is bigger than what we've ever done before, because we went statewide during COVID. So that kind of affected, we did invite only grant cycles. So this past year, it was an open grant cycle to anyone who fit within our pillars of our work. And so those pillars reflected our foundation's interest in like our holistic, innovative approaches to women's economic opportunity. And our giving circles, they are doing that work within their communities, boots on the ground, directly with their partners, and reaching, as I said, partners that they don't know about the Women's Foundation or haven't heard about our grant cycle. Specifically, this past year was the first time it ever gone statewide. So how would they know about us? And this is growing that reach. And so it was great. It was wonderful. And we hope to do more this coming year for 2024 and see our giving circles do the same.
I love that. And Jess, Chandra, y'all first year pushing out grants and y'all gave out money to 10 organizations. That is something to celebrate. A lot of circles, we were happy to give out a couple of grants in that first year, but y'all did the thing. Tell us a little bit more about what that experience was like and your grantee partners. Tell us all the things about your first grant cycle.
We wanted it to be. Oh, okay. We wanted it to be an easy lift for the members that joined. So, I mean, like we had a pretty aggressive timeline. So we took a call out for members, I think in June. We had been talking to a whole bunch of people about it. We started letting them know what was there, what we were doing, what it looked like. And then after that, we really opened it up and took a call for members in June. We had our first meeting in August and we said, hey, we're gonna do a push for this funding by October. So we did it. What we did is we asked the members to nominate organizations that were near and dear to their heart. And so they nominated 11 groups. Our key was that they are women and they are women that serve women and girls and make an impact in our community. And so they made 11 nominations. The only one that didn't make it through was an organization that primarily served in another county. And so but the other 10, they made it. And if anybody runs a nonprofit, you know how hard it is and you know how important it is to have like unrestricted dollars. And most of these organizations, I would say their budget is probably less than 25,000. And so they are just women who are out there. And so one of the groups, she does walks every year for cancer. Two of the groups are hugely impactful in a community awareness kind of way. They work for moms who've lost children to homicide and moms who've lost children broadly. So we had that one. We had someone who provides community-based history tours. And so those are a few of the ones. Someone who does activities around mental health awareness, mentoring, those kind of things. And so what we found is many of the women were funding their projects out of their pocket. And so $1,000 means a lot. It really helps you be able to pay somebody's power bill. It really helps you to provide, activities or stress relief activities for when the moms come and they've lost their children. So it really gives you spaces for these small but yet impactful activities that allow us to create different levels of community.
And I would add to that, the other thing, our members were so excited to be able to volunteer and also to be able to add in other kinds of contributions outside of the giving circle. And so once everybody got a chance to know these fantastic organizations, people went into their extras and they started thinking, oh, well, you have this, program for kids after school. You can use my building, or I can bring some snacks and supply this. And so I think the giving went well beyond even the cash contributions that we ended up giving, but really opened up this whole network of sharing and relating. And I would just say, Chandra touched on it, but it was really important to us to not make this bureaucratic and cumbersome. We really wanted a process where people could feel could move through it relatively easily. Thank you, Elizabeth. Like worked really, really hard on helping us to get this done. But we wanted something that felt like a lighter touch, that felt much more relationship based, trust based, and gave us an opportunity to just sort of see each other as not in this sort of power dynamic of one person has the money and one person doesn't, but really that we needed each other and that we were in community together. And we were so grateful to notice them and see them and affirm what we're doing, because often, these kinds of charitable works, these are things, as Chandra said, that we're kind of digging in our own pocketbooks to try to make happen. And it doesn't necessarily go noticed by everybody because it isn't one of the big organizations in a local area. And so this was an opportunity for us to celebrate them. So one of the things that was so great is when we did the check ceremony, and everybody, it was a big deal. We were all together. We had our capes and our crowns, and we celebrated and sang songs and cried together. And crying was optional.
I missed the party.
I cried.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's really, really, really amazing moment. And I think, people just kept talking about the importance of creating this kind of sisterhood between each other. And that wasn't a piece of language that I was using before, but I've since really started to hold it near and dear, that, beyond just the giving circle itself, it's creating a sisterhood in that community.
And I just want to reiterate, Chandra and Jessica, what they said is they're creating a sisterhood in a community. They send out, so from all their grantee partners, they ask them for do y'all have any upcoming events? Do y'all need any resources? And they gather all that information. They send out mass emails to the Society of Clotilda monthly to share oh, this organization that we granted to is having this upcoming event, or they need these resources. Or it is just wonderful to see them. They're all still together and they continue those relationships beyond just the giving. And so they're continuing to lift them up within the Society of Clotilda and provide for them in other ways as they shared. And so I love to see, I get the emails and I just love to see the work that these organizations are doing too, because you hear about them and maybe someone nominated a different one that you've never heard of. And so it's a better way for them to learn about organizations in their community and the work that they are doing too. And they just do such a wonderful job of that. And I want to touch, and something else they mentioned is that the process, they did do a quick process, and I tried to create it. As I said, these are smaller organizations, and y'all know those grant making systems can be so difficult to navigate. Filling out a grant application for the first time is always very confusing, and sometimes you're just you don't know what you're doing and how to navigate it. I mean, it's the internet. And so I tried to make the process as simple for them as possible. So they did apply through our grant making software and found it, but it was very short. They provided the questions that they wanted in their applications just to gather simple data. As you share, is data so important, and all their information they needed. And then we were able to send out their grants once they were, the proposals were signed and agreed to. And it was such a smaller process than the other ones. But it's also a great way for these organizations to learn about how to apply for grants and to get into there. So now they know oh, I can apply for this grant. I can apply for the next grant from a different organization, and building their resources so they can do more impactful work in their communities. So, and Chandra and Jessica and I were all available for these members if they needed to call on us to be I'm having trouble in this system. What do I do? I would go in and help them out. I was please, push them to me, tell them to call me. I will help them walk through their grant process. And they were so grateful, and just learning about the process in general. And now next year, it'll be even easier since we've done 1 year, and now it's just, hopefully a little smooth sailing from here.
I so appreciate all three of y'all voice. I'm sitting with a couple of words that y'all just shared, because when we talk about women and girls winning in collective giving, y'all really touched on it. I heard the word affirmation. We celebrate them. Y'all give them crowns and capes, but that's our version of your version of giving them their flowers, the love, the money, and as well as just the wraparound, the beyond the dollar piece, the wraparound hard work around these organizations, these grassroots organizations. I'm lifting that up for all of y'all that are listening. When we talk about collective giving and giving circles and the impact of what's happening within these groups, this is what's happening, y'all. And Jessica, I'd love to hear you, even if y'all had one grantee partner, like, because sometimes folks need to hear, what did these grantee partners say to y'all about the process, about their applying or post the celebration? I want to hear that, because I think funders, foundations, or the giving circles, y'all got to know that that really is the uniqueness of our work, of this space that we're holding, is that we unpacked all of the barriers that get in the way of people accessing the funding, combined with loving our grantee partners and seeing them beyond more than just recipients of money. So I want to sit with that for a moment.
Yeah, it's a really important thing. I think we underestimate the power dynamics of, when we're talking about money broadly, and certainly in, a big title and frame like philanthropy, and I'm a philanthropist, but one of the things that I think, and Chandra, I'm going to lob it over to you to add some other texture too, but one of the things that really struck me, as a part of this giving circle was, I thought it would be, Chandra did a lot of the work of calling, calling on folks, but, I thought it would be a lot harder to get people to commit. We really had to, we have a waiting list of folks who are interested, but it's a testament to the women. They were already ready. They were just looking for an opportunity to do this together. And we really helped facilitate that. And then they continue to call their coworkers and say, hey, I'm doing this thing. And then I'm getting emails from, other people who are like, we want to join. We see it as like, legacy building. There are a lot of, our elders who see what we're doing, and they say, we want to join as well. It's an opportunity for them to have this intergenerational relationship with, younger members in the community that they may not necessarily know, but everybody has a part to play. And I think that's where the whole ecosystem, if you will, around the people who are receiving, the community that benefits from it, us who are putting in resources, how we're able to benefit from being givers is a really beautiful thing. And we feel stronger and more capable because we do this, and certainly because we do it together. And so those are some of the sentiments that, come forward. And then the evidence that we see is just like, people really are knocking down our door now, trying to get into this giving circle. Which we feel really proud of, for sure. What would you add to that, Chandra, about how folks feel about it?
I mean, I think we have to add that like the giving circle is like one of the pillars to the bigger platform of work that we created around Society of Clotilda, and just really giving voice to like Black women and girls in our community. And so we don't just do like the giving circle, but then we also have our How I Wear My Crown series, where we talk about Black women's health disparities. We talk about generational trauma. We talk about how to overcome that. Wow. We talked about using art as a channel of activism. And so we commissioned some artists to create a bench. And this bench was going to be a space of reflection and talking and giving. And it's located at the Africatown Heritage House. So like we have that. And I think all of that just really started building momentum, because what we really wanted to look at is there are so many vulnerable women in our community. How can we raise their voices and improve their lives? And so the Giving Circle just became a component of it. And I think that's where we got so many people wanting to be members and wanting to be on board, because Jessica and I had done so much work in 2 or 3 years prior, and this was just an easy slide into. I think so. Our celebration, we did How I Wear My Crown, and we made it like a weekend activity where we brought in speakers to talk about, again, health disparities. We did listening circles. We did all of these things, and we ended it with the ceremony to give the women their checks, to give the women their capes and their crowns. And so they were like brought into a community. They were lifted up by a community. And, when they were leaving, some of the things they were like, I had no idea this was here. I mean, there were lots of tears and lots of hugs and lots of like, each and every time we have an event, the feedback that I get is like, I've never felt so affirmed. I've never felt so safe. I've never felt so included. I've never felt so, fill in the blank of uplifting, inspirational word. And so I think it's just really powerful, kind of the energy that we're harnessing here. Where it's going to lead us, we don't know. We had an opportunity 2 weeks ago, and we invited all of our Giving Circle members and other folks to have conversations with 2 of our elected representatives that Women's Foundation helped us build a foundation for. And it was the first time that, like, in our community that we know of, that we flat talked about, like, this is what policy looks like. Like, these are the things that we need to talk about. These are the things that we need to have discussions around. These are the things that we need to be aware of that's happening to women in our area, and what are we going to do about it, and how can we uplift it? So it's been a very like exciting and humbling process on bringing women together. So yeah.
Chandra, I feel all of that. And before we even, because we're talking so much, so robustly about collaboration done right. Y'all are doing collaboration right with your grantee partners from the foundation, the Giving Circle. It's such a good ecosystem that y'all have, which is why we here and why we pulling it out of y'all today. But I really wanted to just acknowledge the intersectionality work that your Giving Circle has, especially as it relates to Black communities. That history, you said legacy, history, legacy, advocacy, and I know that for a lot of Giving Circles, they're often thinking about how other ways can I engage my members? How else can we keep everybody informed? And so you also just double down on a best practice for other Giving Circles to model. So ladies, as y'all are thinking about within your Giving Circle, what can we do? How can we engage our members into more, tap into those educational components, giving them their flowers? Like, I love the examples, the ceremonies, the program that y'all have. The how we wear our crowns, add some programming up in there. Like, I love it all. I can, that's a whole nother conversation, which we will have another conversation with y'all Giving Circle, because there's so much to unpack. But I just wanted to lift that up, because when we talk about collaboration, even within Giving Circles and collective giving, that also, there's a lot of intersectionality that happens culturally within a Giving Circle. That is something to pull out and to amplify and lift up, that we don't talk about enough, I don't think, within collective giving. So
You know what it makes me think of, though, Ty, when you mention that intersectionality. I think for the women in our community, and I think this might be women everywhere, I don't know, but I'm going to claim and hold it for our community for sure. We are our money is a part of our story and our storytelling. It talks about where we from, how hard we work, what we value, what we love, and so I think making a gift is one part of it, but there's a lot more inside of a relationship to resources, and I think that intersectional point that you're making just continues to highlight that for me around we are thinking of leadership development. We are thinking about the policies and how we're supporting policies that affirm and support us and our families. We are thinking about how do we amplify our resources, whether it's our financial resource or our labor resource, but how do we actually make it count for us in our community? And I feel like the more that we lock those thoughts in together, the more that we're able to really like speak to the full sort of fullness of what a woman is and what they're experiencing. And I think that creates a lot of value, and it creates a lot of safety, because you see me fully and not just in this one place where it feels more transactional because you only see this one dimension of me, but you get a chance to see more of who I am. And I think that part, I didn't know that the Giving Circle would be such a gateway to opening all of those facets up. But, I would just sort of, for everybody who is doing their giving circles or thinking about even doing one, and for foundations who are thinking about why should we get into this kind of thing, I would just say that there is a real high touch relationship value that comes forward that
Yes.
we hadn't been able to really reach, maybe if we hadn't put all of these components in together at one time. And so I just wanted to build on
I'm
that.
taking that. I'm taking that whole clip. I kid you not. I'm having my team to pull that whole clip because that's part of the advocacy of this work is getting people to understand the benefits, the value of it.
Yeah.
And we can talk about, but we can really talk about it. And we're trying to get more foundations for y'all to consider this form of, it's not even that you should consider, this is how philanthropy needs to be done. We're getting back to the organs. Anyway, let me stop there. Before I go to the call to action, it was about to make me go. The policy piece. I'll be remiss. It's an election year, y'all. And to your point of what you said, Jessica, yes, actually, Giving Circles, this new research that's about to come out that I'm going to tell y'all about later, this research that's about to come out is going to show how Giving Circles really are serving as on-ramps for civic engagement and greater strengthening of our democracy. So when we talk about money being moved, the love, all the things we're talking about, we're also talking about like democracy, the way bigger picture of how people engage as citizens. And so before I ask y'all, we wrap up about y'all call to action, I really think I want to ask y'all about policy. Is there a policy that's on your radar personally or within a Giving Circle or at the foundation, Elizabeth, that y'all are watching, that all women, we all need to be watching it, looking at, eyes on it, that is going to support our advocacy and policy work for women and girls? What should we be on the lookout for, if any?
Well, within the state of Alabama, the
sure.
policy that we are working on and within the Women's Foundation is the child care tax credits. So our main focus this year is on child care tax credits and for the whole state of Alabama. So hopefully they will, in the next couple of weeks, they're supposed to go to the House and we'll hear more about the bill specifics in the next when they're introduced. But we know that like child care is essential for women to enter and remain in the workforce. And this bill has a potential to impact thousands of Alabama families, increase labor force participation, and bolster the state's economy just overall. And like we're saying, if this bill is passed in the first year, it has an estimate that the child care tax credit bill will impact 7,079 families within the state of Alabama. That's 5,000 children in subsidies and 5,000 children at nonprofit child care facilities. And that's just by increasing accessibility and affordability to quality child care. And that also goes back to women in the workforce. And without childcare, women cannot be in the workforce. And as you said, policy, and Jessica mentioned, it's like lifting these women up and giving the women are closest to the problems, especially women problems, because we are the ones who are living the life. And so giving those women the voices and the resources and just the path to talking about policy and getting work done within the state or across the US is women do not, it's just education and having those open conversations and encouraging women to talk about it. And as I said, it's another form of philanthropy. It's just having these conversations and informing women of like, this is what's going on and this is how you can support. And it's like, what are issues that you want to talk about as well? Giving them the space to talk about things that are affecting them personally. And then, the ones closest to the problems will be the ones solving the problems. So that's our child care tax credits is our number one thing this year. And hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll know what happens.
Hopefully do the right thing. If you can drop a link or something like that so people can follow it who are in Alabama. Jessica, Chandra, what y'all, any legislation, policy work, what y'all eyes are on this election year? Candidates, anything? Even though we're nonpartisan, but I just figured we already have some. We're not really, but we have to be for the.
I mean, well, Chandra, we just had one of our first policy conversations the other day, and it was really insightful. All politics really begins it's local, and so we were really recognizing Mobile is 52% African American, and majority women. But
Mm.
we haven't seen women in elected leadership in the city since 1997. And so we're all talking to one another about what it means to start activating and mobilizing our vote and our voice, and also what it looks like to encourage other women to step up and to elected, to run for public office in our community. What do they need? What kind of support? What are some of their fears and things like that? So we're doing a lot of those conversations, but I see the through line as we're engaging and talking about what is happening locally. We're energizing, I think, a community of folks who are also thinking about what's happening in Montgomery. We had our legislators from our local area come to talk to us about different policies that were moving. The child tax credit was definitely one of the ones that we learned a little bit about. And we continue to monitor, policies that are coming out of Montgomery, but we're getting a lot more educated and we're starting to really find our own voice in our community. And I think that will definitely translate when it comes time to the elections in November. Found anything in your that works for you?
Yeah, Chandra, did you have anything to add? And that's good. And what you just said, Jessica, about just the conversations.
Oh
I
yeah.
like just that's in itself.
Oh yeah.
You start talking about advocacy and policy in the election year, y'all. So I love that y'all are being intentional about just talking about it. That's a huge step.
Yeah.
And I concur. That would be the only thing that I would add was that, like, how powerful the conversation was, how like there were so many issues and there were so many bills that were coming forward that we just weren't educated on.
Yeah.
We had education on the DEI bill, the IVF bill, the child care tax credit bills, just understanding like where it came from and how it impacts women and how it impacts women in our community and what we can start doing. And I mean, I think we resoundingly all left thinking like, we just don't know what we don't know, right? We just get so caught up in the day-to-day of our lives. And particularly for our, the women in our community that are under-resourced, I'm just trying to survive. We don't have time to learn about the depths of all these things that are happening or not happening and how to educate ourselves so that we can, if we want to talk to our legislators, we can. If we want to send letters, if we want to have discussions or education groups with our churches, I think that's what a lot of women went away with. Like, we need to have more of these discussions, and why aren't we having them outside of an election year? Why are we just becoming activated at this moment? We need to continually be activated, and how can we do that?
Right.
I love that. And I want to also lift up, y'all, we're not crazy. This stuff is hidden, it's buried, it's meant to confuse us and all of the things. And so hopefully all of us are inspired to just start talking about it, allowing ourselves to become educated about it. Things are happening in these state legislators, y'all. And so a bill that I'm following is the Protect Black Women and Girls Act. So if you're on here listening out loud, if that's something that speaks to your heart, follow it. It's a bill that we all should be rooting for and advocating for. Y'all, we have 7 minutes. I literally can talk to y'all all day because y'all are doing so much stuff. But my production team is like, okay, so I'm gonna try to do 2 minutes. And I have a question for each of you as we close out, and then we're gonna share a few resources. Elizabeth.
Yes.
Question for you, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm thinking about the call to action because we've talked so much about, and I appreciate your advocacy and love and just your candidness around why the Women's Foundation of Alabama have chosen to be more intentional and have a holistic approach about investing in women and girls. But what role do you see collective giving playing in the future of philanthropy and community development and policy as it relates to women issues from a foundation sense? And this is like, from a foundation sense, like what does that look like?
So just collective giving, we know that it challenges like what traditional philanthropy is seen as. And so just overall giving people the ability to come together, as Chandra and Jessica had, to talk about these issues that are going on within the state and within their communities, and just like being able to have a platform to talk about policy, that is not something that like we have been given specifically as women before, in the past. And so I see collective giving playing like a bigger part of a bigger picture specifically related to women's issues, because those, you know, we are the ones with who are closest to the problem. And so we understand what is happening within our communities and what is happening across the state is specifically related to women and girls. And so collective giving will give women the space to come together, redefine what it means to be a philanthropist to them and to their groups of the collectively that they form, and address the issues that affect them at their core and who they are. And so the foundation is just giving them and uplifting them to do this, and we're just supporting them, and hopefully like their families, their communities, and these women will feel supported to talk about these issues and to move beyond, like, you know, be able to call their legislators in policy work and tell and share with them. I mean, we can share so much, like, you know, on Instagram, but like if someone doesn't explain the policy or explain like this is what's happening in your community and this is why it's happening in your community, because as Chandra shared it, people are just trying to live day by day, and they don't realize that the reason that some parts of their lives that are not easy for them is because things are stopping them, and we have to change. We have to make changes. And so I hope the collective giving will be, you know, play into foundations as a bigger part of giving women a platform to be philanthropists within their own communities and across their states, and just give them the ability to make changes that they want to see within their communities. So.
Perfectly said. Thank you for that. Jessica, you mentioned that Society of Clotilda is a new circle. And we know, again, congratulations to y'all on your first year of phenomenal work. I'm thinking about what ways can individuals that are new to philanthropy, considering starting a giving circle, what ways can they get involved in collective giving efforts if they're not interested in, like, maybe, you know, what ways can people get involved in collective giving? So that, and then how can we encourage more women to become involved in spaces like the Society of Clotilda, especially those from underrepresented communities?
Yeah, one of the best things that happened to us is that we asked other women who had given circles to help. And there is a fantastic organization, a community investment network that brings together a lot of giving circles. And we were able to talk to so many people who were so helpful, who gave us like a lot of, really valuable information about how to organize ourselves, and also the importance of maintaining relationships and building relationships amongst the giving circle members themselves. And so doing, if little things together, maybe we go out to dinner together, maybe we do something just to keep us in relationship. We got a lot of really valuable advice. And so I would say reach out to us if you want, some advice. And certainly there are giving circles around you, or go and check out Community Investment Network. I think was a really great resource for us as well. But talking to other people who have giving circles, they are always so sweet and so willing to give you a lot of great information, because they want to see more of us out there doing this work. And so I would say start there, and it is not as hard as you imagine. I would also end with, we come from a community and a history where we have always done things collectively, and we've maybe forgotten that over the years. But pooling our resources together to be able to purchase land, or in the cases of, African Americans who have been formerly enslaved, to purchase someone's freedom. We've always put our resources together to make it forward. And so this is a reclaiming. This isn't necessarily something that we don't, that we're not used to. This is what we do. And so the invitation is to step back into your relationship to giving in that way. And it'll be really a joyful experience, I promise.
We're not new to this. We true to this. I hear you.
There it is.
100%. No, that's beautiful advice. And yes, shout out to the Community Investment Network, our girl Marsha over there. They are the largest network of Black-led giving circles in this nation. So plug in if that's your jam, of what you're trying to, or reach out directly, as Jessica said, to them. They'll like to help. I love that. Yeah. And then for you, Chandra, I have a question of like looking ahead, because first off, your circle is about to be something. It's already amazing, but y'all have people wait listed, people want to join. I can see y'all being just like extremely big and vibrant and continue to grow. So looking ahead, I'm gonna speak some affirmations for y'all. What are some of the goals and aspirations that you have for the circle? And how can the community better support y'all in the work that y'all are doing in Alabama?
That's a great question. I think some of our goals is to continue and probably deepen our policy work, is to really get people educated on the issues that impact us and how they affect us. I think, Jessica and I have always talked about doing this work and creating spaces of joy. So continuing to find like those kind of moments that we can come together as women to create spaces of joy for each other. I think often we get so caught up in doing the work that we don't find the glimmers of joy that we have every single day, that we find in our sisterhood and our connectedness and our conversations and all those things. So to continue to find ways to celebrate that. And I think Jessica and I have continued to talk about like, what can we do to deepen this to create, and not create, but I think build on and sustain like intergenerational relationships, because that's the true legacy of it. So, yep, it's cool that I have my mom who's a part of this. I don't have biological children, but the goal is like at one point I'd love to bring in my cousins and their cousins. And so we can continue to create these legacies that this is just what you do. So it's not a new or different thing. It's not this cool thing that we're creating that ends with us. It's just something that continues to go on and on to impact women in our community.
It's so going to happen. Well, thank y'all so very much for being just the amazing, amazing women that you are. And just how y'all are driving change in Alabama. I'm passionate about the South. I'm in Dallas. I'm y'all's sister over here, over yonder in Texas, doing the same work. We're in this fight together. We're in this fight, but also this joyhood of sisterhood together. And so I like to see more of it collectively, with us sharing resources and rooting each other on. And we're going to continue to do more of that, not just this month as we amplify and celebrate Women's History Month, but just 365, we're about it. So thank you all for joining. Y'all find out more about just the Women's Foundation of Alabama, the work that they are doing, and Society of Clotilda. They have websites available. Y'all quick Google search or go directly to their website, follow them on Instagram, all the things, amplify their work. And y'all join us hopefully next month on April 2nd. Where the latest landscape research about collective giving is coming out, y'all. The last one was done in 2017. So y'all join us at philanthropytogether.org. Sign up for that webinar so y'all can get the recent data that will help all of us tell the story. It was done, sorry, my producer said it was done in 2016. You're right, 2016. But new research is coming out right now. And yes, and make sure also, so April, we're keeping y'all busy. Join us for the webinar for the research. In May, the largest celebration of collective giving is happening globally at We Give Summit. So please join us May 7th through the 9th. Every year we bring philanthropists, everyday philanthropists like us, y'all, together around the world to celebrate collective giving. And this year's theme is activate together, because we all really need to activate in real life. And so hopefully those two events will see you all in the meantime. If not, at the next collective conversation next month, right here on LinkedIn Live. Thank y'all for being here and for the extra time that we went over. God bless you and have a great rest of your day.
Thank y'all.